And Ian Price, the legendary Ian Price. Are you coming down? Thanks very much. I've got an awful tight schedule. And we all want to hear you. I came back and you disappeared on me. Okay, off you go. Now, just say to everybody, before we start, you had a tremendous, we have a legendary Ian Price who's going to play 2 songs for us, and we're going to start the meeting straight away.
Thanks for calling me legendary. Determination, he gave the world the strength and courage. Over down the nation, in times to the in darkness, safe and middle inside the argument for power and hour. He was so successful, they were in the chair. Some were leaders and sent to royal garden parties. Some were leaders and sent to the House of Lords. Some were leaders and go to jail and go to prison. Which one sent you down the river? Which one floored your doors? The Lord said, "What you on the wall?" He said, "My name is Betty Warren." That's your name, you fool. You don't lose what I need. And he said, "My name is Betty Warren. My name is Betty Warren. Nothing that belongs to you is ever say my name." The Boston territory on the road to Englishman Teddy. Later came to Iowa, so that he wasn't free. So don't just point your finger, and don't you frame it in the first place. It's like the scoundrels who won't let you the keys. The God said, "What you on the wall?" He said, "My name is Betty Warren." That's your name, fool. You don't lose what I need. And he said, "My name is Betty Warren. My name is Betty Warren. I'm gonna let belongs to you. Always say my name." He refused to take the label of a criminal, so he brought him awkward to be broken and denied. He jumped in, they infected him with levels, tranquilizers. The bastards that he killed him, because he dared to take our side. And I said, "What you on the wall?" He said, "My name is Betty Warren." That's your name, fool. You don't lose what I need. He said, "My name is Betty Warren. My name is Betty Warren. Nothing that belongs to you. Always say my name. Nothing that belongs to you is always say my name. Nothing that belongs to you. I'm say my name. Thank you so much. Thanks for putting this on. It's an honour to be here as part of this. Good luck to us all. I'm going to sing this one, and down there in that conference hall, the Sun newspaper is there. As far as I'm concerned, if they really want the Sun in, they shouldn't go to another city and hold a fucking conference. Sorry for the swearing. Kansas soul lies above the ground in that pyramid near Maryland. Easy jet is hanging in the air, taking everyone everywhere. Whoa. See the slave ships sailing into war, the blood of Africans on every wall. Now there's a red line runs down that Union Street. It's giving energy to all of me. So whoa, hey, does this train stop? Does this train stop on the side? Whoa, hey, does this train stop? Does this train stop on the side? Whoa. I'm Williams and all the roads, getting sun watching everyone. Family folks surrounded in the pain, bringing in the poor next to it. Hey, does this train stop? Does this train stop on the side? Oh, hey, does this train stop? Does this train stop on the side? Boston baby dancing around, moving out to every town. Oh, yeah, yeah. Why don't you remember? Oh, yeah, yeah. Why don't you remember? I can't conceive what those children done. Guess there's a meanness in the soul of man. Yorkshire policemen chat with folded arms. People try to save their fellow fans. Hey, does this train stop? Does this train stop on the side? Oh, hey, does this train stop? Does the train stop on the side? Oh, hey, does this train stop? Does the train stop on the side? Oh, hey, does this train stop? Does this train stop on the side? Whoa.
On? Oh, can you hear me now? So, you are a legend, good legend. And all I can say is, we're so glad that Ken's train stopped on Merseyside tonight. So, I want to just welcome everybody, a really, really warm welcome to everyone who's turned up tonight for this launch, very, very important launch of the network. Before I go into a few things, I'd like to just thank you for coming. Thank the musicians for coming. Thank these people who are the founding members of this network, who are sitting on the table here, for coming here tonight to launch a special launch of this organisation in Liverpool. I also want to thank the CASA, because I don't think we thank the CASA enough. Jackie and Tony Nelson, absolute heart. The heart of the trade union movement in Liverpool, who give us this facility, and are absolutely fantastic activists in their own right. Tony Nelson, obviously a hero of the Dockers movement, and famous, for leading that massive dispute. And before I go into the meeting itself, I want to say, please be aware that there's a fire escape there. There's fire escape at the back, and please try not to block the exit. A bit of a joke there, but if you be aware anyway, be aware of safety. Anybody who can't hear and having problems, there's also speakers in the basement there, which is quite a nice little venue downstairs at the front of the CASA, and obviously in the bar. But don't worry, not to worry, because there will be around the country a series of launches. And hopefully, a series of hubs springing up, which have started already, that will get this movement off the ground. And I want to apologise to comrades for standing, because, we knew this would be massive, and it really is. And we've had to limit the tickets, so I'm sorry we haven't got St George's Hall, but it does run to a few thousand. And so apologise to you, and if anybody is having problems, please let one of the people in yellow know, and then find a seat for you. So I just want to outline the evening first. There's a series of speakers for you, and I'm sorry we have to speak at you. We don't want to do that, because this is the start of a grassroots movement, where the actual people who are important in this movement are the grassroots activists right across the country. We have got some fantastic speakers, but to be fair, our founding members are pretty good speakers as well. So I hope that you'll bear with me as I go from grassroots activists who will be speaking, and each of the founding members will make a contribution as we go along. We've got to be very tight, so I'm sorry if you think I'm a bit of a bully, but we've only got a short time, because we've got to get Ken on the train, and he's going to be leaving here around 7 o'clock. Ken will have 4 minutes, and anybody who comes up to speak, we would ask you to come to the microphone when I indicate you to come up and speak. And that's because we're having this meeting live streamed, and we're also having it filmed. So that's a good way for us as a movement to get our message out there and to share this meeting with everybody. So if you don't mind, that would be really good. So please come to the mic, and please be very, very short with your contributions when you are asked to make one. 2 minutes is the maximum, if that's okay. So we've got to be strictly on time, and that's one of the main things, because we have an organisation as a movement. We've got to organise ourselves. We've got the backdrop to the world events that are going on today, the whole trying to save the environment and the planet. We've got austerity. We've got our kids in debt before they start off their lives trying to get an education. We've got a horrendous political situation where now working class has no voice whatsoever. I mean, when we look realistically, working class only ever had edged their way in the Labour Party to get reforms. But now even those reforms have been thrown out the window, and we actually have a duopoly. We have no choice in politics. But politics is important, but class struggle is vital. And that's where we see our movement, needing to organise itself better, not harping on to differences, not having egos, not thinking in 19 organisation was saying this or that comrade over there was opposed to such and such. We've got to make sure now that we unite, that we lay the groundwork tonight. We lay the groundwork, that we all start to understand what for the many means and how for the many can help our organisation become a powerful social movement, that the working class can find a voice through campaigns, through demonstrations, through trade union activity, through going on the picket lines, from everything from campaigning for your local community garden right the way up to changing the planet. And we've got to do that. The responsibility is on us as activists to link up all of us. Imagine how frightened the establishment would be if we were united. And this is what we've got to do. That's the task ahead of us. So I want to start off tonight with one of our most powerful speakers, and it's a community activist. He's the president of the Bakers Union, and please welcome, I nearly forgot your name then, Ian Hodson.
I hope you'll hear me anyway. It's an absolute pleasure to be here tonight. So very grateful for all the people that's turned out to the Loach event here at the Casa. What an amazing venue and what an amazing history we're surrounded with. And you think of some of the stuff that's gone on in here, some of the organisation that's happened here. We really are in, an historic building, and well done to the people who run this place for maintaining, the Casa in its current form, and long may that continue. But obviously, people would have seen the launch, and many people would have said, "Oh, not another party. We don't need another party. We've seen so many of these things happen. We're not intended currently to be a political party in any way, shape, or form. That is not the aim of what we're trying to do. The aim is to try and organise around 12 principles that we believe is common and a common understanding between all of us. And the aim then is to get the activists that were so inspired by the Corbyn movement and the people that were so inspired by the opportunity for change in 2017 back to not feeling hopeless, but believing that change can happen, but understanding that we can't rely on an individual to deliver that change. It always was and always is down to us. It's us that will make the change that's needed, but only by standing together and understanding the role that we have to perform. And it's going to take work, I was here a couple of weeks ago and somebody made this fantastic comment from this platform actually and said, it's not called a struggle for nothing. If it was a double, we'd call it a double. But it's not, it's a struggle. And we know that. We see it every day. We understand the hardships that people have in their lives. And what the common political view is well, those hardships you're suffering are those people coming over in small boats. Those hardships you're suffering is because too many migrants have come in the country and taken your job or taken your home. But the reality is, we haven't built council houses for decades. We haven't built homes for people to live in for such a long time that people are now fighting against each other to get a decent place to live. As a dad, I want my kids to leave home, but they're not in a position because they can't get a mortgage, because the jobs are insecure. And if we're going to change that, then we have to do that by coming together and standing and realising that it's only us that can make that difference. And that's what the For Many networks are about. The idea is to set up hubs across the country, to work with organisations, to discuss how we can change politics, to run street stalls, to talk to people on the street. How does politics impact on your life? Is it working for you? Do you see that those politicians in Westminster are addressing the issues that you and your family face? Well, I think we all know the answer to that. I think we all recognise that the politicians are only interested in themselves and the people who buy them the lunches. They're not interested in us. And we aim to break that spell. We aim to train people who set up in those hubs. How do you lobby a councillor? How do you lobby an MP? How do you get the issues that impact our lives in the media? How do we do that? How do we make a difference as people? We aim to train people to go out on the streets and talk to people. How do we deal with the issue that people can't eat? How do we connect the different community groups together? We train each other with the skills that we possess to make all of our lives better. And that's what the network is about. That's why it's not a political party. We didn't want to get into the idea that, come and vote for us or anything like that. Because politics isn't working for us. And the only way politics will work for us is when we're able to do it. When we talk about issues and their priorities, they are our priorities. And our job in this network is to get our priorities on that political landscape. And working together is how we're going to do it. And like I say, this is the launch tonight. You're going to hear different objectives from different people on this panel here, and obviously from the community people that are already getting involved with our community hubs. Together, we can make a difference. Don't believe coming here is the end of it. We can't just come here and then go away. We have to take part. We have to understand that we're in a fight. And the fight is, do you want your children's lives to be better? Do you want your children's lives to be better? Do you want your partner's life to be better? Do you want your grandparents' life to be better? Do you want your life to be better? Well, if you do, then join the Many Network, because together we will change everything. Solidarity.
So, I've heard it before. So now we have Laura Lee Daly, who's a community activist, an organiser, and a trade unionist. Welcome to Laura.
Right, I might have to shout. I'm sorry. Apologies. Not skills. I can shout.
Oh, there you go. Oh, look at the girl suction.
Yeah, I'm Laura Daly, another Laura from the northeast. Probably not the most famous one, but you know what? It's a grassroots movement, and all Lauras matter in my eyes. So I've decided because, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. Thank you for having me involved. Thank you, all of you, for coming today. It's incredible to see so many amazing people in one room. It is really inspirational just to have you here. The For the Many Network is exactly that. It's a network. It is not this. It's not us talking at you. I'm really excited for us to get into communities and find out, how we can fix those communities, because let's face it, they are broken. I've decided tonight to choose one of the 12 pledges, and if you haven't seen them yet, head to our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, literally anywhere, to find our 12 principles that we stand by. And the one I've decided to talk about tonight is education, not least because I work with a teacher trade union, but also I've got 2 kids. So education is really, really important to me, and I'm sure to everybody here. And I've written this bit down because this is the bit I can't get wrong. This is the actual pledge, and our pledge says high quality state education to ensure that all have an equal opportunity to fulfill their potential without incurring the burden of debt, and end to privatisation. Yes, please. If we can get that, then that makes everything else so much easier, doesn't it? It really does. And I think one of the things I really want to talk about is the parity of esteem that we don't have. As a working class girl from the northeast, there were no expectations on me whatsoever. I wasn't going to go be a lawyer or a doctor or a famous actress, although I am in Keynote with most reasons. That wasn't going to happen for me. And so, and there's this narrative as well that says, if you don't try hard, you might end up being a cleaner. Oh my God, imagine the worst thing in the world is being a cleaner. When we've just seen throughout COVID that actually being a cleaner is one of the most important jobs that you could possibly do. We need to work towards changing the attitudes towards this type of education, vocational and, and academia should be seen with a parity of esteem, as I say. They're both important. It doesn't matter. Some of us are minute reading books and doing exams and creating things. Some of us are brilliant at using our hands and building things, and there should be no difference in that. And I feel really strongly that that is a narrative we need to push. It's a narrative that is not pushed because the working class are seen as the lower class, and we have to tidy everyone else's mess up, and we have to clean, and we have to build, and we should be seen as lesser. But I'll tell you one thing, during COVID, did anybody really, really miss all those people that were coding law into legislation? Oh my God, the world almost ended, didn't it? No, it didn't. Schools cannot function without cleaners. Hospitals cannot function without cleaners. Nothing can. And to minimise the role of a cleaner is just absolutely disgusting. And also, we should be paying them better. I realise I'm kind of going into trade unionism here, but also pay people what they're worth. And cleaners, and it's not just cleaners, we know that. All of these jobs and roles that seem to be lower class and lesser than need to be paid effectively, and that's why we're on strike for so many reasons, and we should continue to do that and support that.
No, please, Laura.
I can, yeah, sorry. God, see, I really want to. I'm sorry, Andrew, I'm not going to get into like misogyny and women's rights activism, which I also do, but please come talk to me after and I'll tell you what's wrong with the education system in terms of that. Everyone thinks our performance needs to be measured, and it's not. It's not that our performance needs to be measured. Things like Ofsted and things like that do not work. It is just a way to tick a box and take away our free choice. The education system needs to be completely renewed so that teachers can teach, teachers get paid better, children can learn, and they can feel valued. The For the Many Network will lobby to do that, and I would ask all of you to join local networks, to join your local hubs to get this done, because this will be the start of our future. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Laura. Absolutely fabulous to hear from you. Now, Mary Whitby. Mary Whitby is one of the most amazing campaigners for the NHS and for the Liverpool Women's Hospital. One of the organisers of the big demonstration on some absolutely amazing demonstration on Saturday. So, lovely to hear from you.
Thanks, no, it's a shot. I can't believe that. Thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. I was at the conference this morning, and we're trying to give out leaflets for We Own It, and all the suits are going in, like clones, and they wouldn't take a leaflet about the NHS, and I shamed them into it eventually. I told them it wouldn't get them expelled, and then I said, well, it might actually. I couldn't get expelled for a sneeze these days. And I embarrassed them and made them laugh. But, Liverpool Women's Hospital has been under threat for 8 years now. And it's part of the wider restructuring of the NHS on the American model. In order to give the private sector a foothold into health, they had to shrink the NHS, because when we got all our needs met by the NHS, we didn't need a private sector. They couldn't get a foothold, because why would you pay again for something that you could get on the NHS anyway. So unfortunately, there's a cross-party consensus on the NHS, and so I really welcome this network because we need more people to be aware of what they've lost. People just don't understand what they've lost until they try to access it and they can't. So if we can build a movement, because as NHS campaigners, we can't do it on our own. We need everyone to join, and we need to fight for the housing and the education that Laura talked about, and our health. And we can't work and we can't care for our families if we don't have our health. And you know, when you talk about the American system to profit from health, you have to deny people care. It's the only way you can make money out of health. You can't give people all the things they need and still make money. So we've now got 7.7 million people on waiting lists, and that's the equivalent of the combined populations of the 14 biggest cities in this country, in the UK. Yeah, it's Glasgow, Liverpool, Birmingham, Newcastle, Leeds, all those big cities, all combined, still don't even add up to 7.7 million. We've got people waiting 24 hours on waiting lists, in A&Es. We've got people on trolleys, queuing ambulances. We've got staff having to go to food banks. We've got more than 2,000 food, and we've got more food banks than we've got McDonald's. So in the 5th richest country in the world, we can afford a world-class NHS. And we can't actually afford not to have it, because the only way we can not have it is we'll pay for it with our lives and the lives of future generations. So I really welcome this network to build the movement across the country. We can all fight for the 12 principles, and particularly I'd like to invite you to fight for the NHS. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Mary. We have now, just want to introduce Naomi Wimborne-Dreesey. She's one of the founding members of For the Many. You've probably seen Naomi over many years, actually, as a media officer for the Jewish Voice for Labour. She was elected to the NEC and expelled, of course, as we all are, anybody with a voice. She's a member of the NUJ and the NEU. She's an internationalist and a Jewish woman who fights for justice for Palestine.
Everybody involved in setting up this great day and everybody who's come. There is actually a bit of space a bit further forward for the people who are crammed in the corridor there. I don't know if people want to come forward a bit, Audrey. That was a great introduction, thank you. It's actually rather a somber day. I'm talking about Palestine, of course. I'm talking about the deaths of both Jews and Palestinians in Israel, which we all have to mourn and for. It's very easy in these days to be. Oh, can you use? Is the mic not working?
There you go.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
Okay.
Well, this mic is good.
Yeah.
It's coming through now.
All right. Is that any better?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. That's good to hear. All right. So I was just saying what a somber day it is because of the terrible news that we've been getting from Palestine and from Israel, where there have been terrible deaths in the Israeli population and Palestinians are dying in their hundreds now. And I'm afraid this is going to go on, and the world is not helping by basically giving encouragement to the Israeli state to continue its oppression. But it's also a somber time, I feel. Sorry, I don't want to lower the tone, but I think it's a somber time because everything seems so hopeless, doesn't it? We've been betrayed by the leadership of the Labour Party. Not only have I been expelled, so many people have been suspended or expelled or made to feel so unwelcome that they've left what is meant to be the party of Labour. Ian Hodson, for heaven's sake, president of the Bakers Union, which was one of the founding organisations of the Labour Party back in 1903, was expelled by the Labour Party. I mean, what can you say? So, and also in terms of what's going on in society, the Tory backlash against all of the freedoms and rights that were fought for by working people over the generations, they're rolling them all back. You know, the right to free speech, the right to access to justice, the right even to vote in an unfettered way, etc., etc. Everything looks a bit grim. So what should we be doing? What is the reaction to this? Do we throw our hands up in despair and retire from politics altogether? Many people obviously do that. Turnout at that most recent by-election, by-election for Parliament was incredibly low. Why? People don't see the point. If there's no choice between the two main parties and the other parties don't seem to have any chance of success, what is the point? We've got to find, as Ian said, a new way of doing, not by proposing a new party, for heaven's sake, we've got enough, but by proposing ways of working together. So we need to unite, as we did when Jeremy Corbyn led the Labour Party, under a set of principles with which we are can all agree. They're so fundamental. Laura mentioned some of them. I've already referred to the hard-won rights, freedom of speech, and so on. I know Andy's going to talk about other elements in the principles. They're on your seats. They're dotted around on the leaflets. Do take a look at them. Ideas that nearly won us the election in 2017. Bringing together all people of goodwill who want to see justice and equality in society. So if anybody who's committed to those ideas, we need to find ways of working together. And it doesn't matter if you are still in the Labour Party, there are people who are still doing it. If you've been thrown out, or you were never in it, or you've left in despair, that's fine, work through the network. Trade union or in any other political organisation, that's fine. You can unite through the network. We can commit to working together. Whatever campaign you're involved in, right to food, migrant action, anti-racism, Palestine solidarity, of course, I would mention that. I'm going to wind up. We have to build, when you go away, this is not a rally, this is an organising meeting. You go away from here, you find other people, like mind in your areas, you build your hub, you connect through this network with other hubs nationwide, and we build a network, a kind of skeleton upon which flesh can be added in later days, and who knows what we can make of this. So I would say, get out there, start organising, we can unite, there is hope. So over to you guys.
Ben, you won't ignore me, will you?
No.
No, okay.
I think it's going to be
Now, let me introduce Ben Sellers. Ben Sellers is the former media manager to Jeremy Corbyn, and he was an advisor to Laura Pidcock. And of course, he's the man who's going to help us to build our network, we hope.
So it could be like a competition who's not going to get told off by Audrey. I'm aiming to win that competition. I just wanted to say, those titles are nice, and I'm proud of them, and I'm proud of the work with Jeremy and Laura. But I always saw my role as a community activist, even when I was in Parliament. And I think that's really important in terms of this network. We're all activists, we're all organisers. So one of the things about that social media that I kind of organised and I helped facilitate and brought people into it was that we spoke to people very clearly, but not just in a one way. You know, it was a dialogue between the movement and Jeremy Corbyn's social media, or other, Momentum's social media in the early days, certainly, and, the Jeremy Corbyn 4PM page. We always saw it as a two-way strategy. But I want to say it wasn't enough. We did, and I don't want to bring a downer either, Naomi, but it wasn't enough. We didn't do enough. And what we didn't do enough of was build that organising structure right across the country. So we ended up becoming quite centralised, quite focused on Parliament, and we need to learn that lesson. And you don't have to be critical of either Jeremy or the people around him. I mean, I could talk about momentum, but if you look at my social media, you'll see I have made comments about them in the past and the failures. But it's not about that. It's about saying, look, we learned the lessons and we're going to do things differently. And I think already you've heard how we're going to do things differently. But I think that to learn those lessons, to do things properly, we have to build around issues that matter to people. We need to talk in a language that people can relate to, and we need to make sure that people are involved at every step. And that's a lot of hard work, but I think that's why we need this network. And we need to develop organisers, discover organisers in every community, particularly in working class communities that we often missed out, even during Corbyn's leadership. So that's really important. And so the fact that people maybe couldn't all get into here doesn't matter, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be launching and organising right across the country. If this works, that's what we'll be doing. And I just wanted to pick up on something that Laura said about the education pledge, which I think, sorry, I shouldn't call it a pledge. The principle. And I just want to explain a little bit about how it might work at the local level, just to give an example, but this could go for any of those principles. So we have that principle on education, and then what we do is we build a crack team of people that are going to fight academies in every community where they are, rather than just saying we've got a policy that will happen in government at some point for a national education service that doesn't really mean anything to people. I know it's a great policy, but that isn't what means to people. And so when I talk about a crack team, I mean somebody doing the research on the companies that are involved, or the individuals that are involved in the academy, somebody else working on the social media, somebody else working on talking to parents, trying to convince them. All that work, it's a lot of work, but we can do it because we've got the foundations. And I think that's the way we build confidence. So we, as I said before, about building leaders, building organised people, working class people in communities, and building that network from the bottom up. So the connection with social media there is that we share the absolute best examples of that organising work, and that is what we did. Some of that under Jeremy Corbyn, that was brilliant, but we didn't do enough of that, and so we have a two-way dialogue between the social media and the grassroots organising, and that's what we're going to do. Anybody who wants to get involved in that, please let me know, and it will happen at a local level as well.
Thanks very much. I've got a comrade here, well known in Merseyside. He's the Fire Brigade Chair for Merseyside, and firemen, they are the best of our class. They really are. So welcome, Lee Hunter.
Thank you. Comrades, we need change. We need to band together to bring about that change. Working classes are the biggest group in our country, yet we allow ourselves to be divided so that we cannot provide strong opposition to whoever Murdoch has decided is going to be his puppet for the next governmental term. For the Many Network want to bring about that change. One of the 12 principles is to ensure that working people have full employment rights from day one, and that anti-trade union legislation is repealed. The FBU in Merseyside, as many other unions have done, has recently had to reballot for industrial action. We smashed the thresholds with 92% of our controlled staff voting and 100% voting yes to right action. But having to reballot every 6 months is expensive, time-consuming, and meant to disrupt trade unions. We also have a ridiculously strict guidelines on how we can collect subscriptions and donate to political parties. These laws are meant to weaken trade unions. They must be removed. Unions are for the many, the only voice that many in our workplaces have. Then we have the minimum service bill. This has been brought in to force workers in certain sectors, including fire, health, education, travel, and rail, to work, even when a legal strike ballot has been won. has been brought in for one reason, because strikes work. Strikes are always the last resort, but when the bosses won't listen, what other choice do we have?
Exactly.
The right to strike, to withdraw our labour, is a human right, and they want to take that away from us. This draconian bill must be repealed. The Fire Brigade Union have a policy on this, and I'm proud to say that it came from the Fire Brigade Union in Merseyside. To remove our right to strike, we immediately recall conference and we immediately vote to take strike action.
Yeah!
We will not be told by the bosses which of us will break the picket line. We will not be told which of us will scab. When I first went on station, a young firefighter, almost 20 years ago, an older firefighter said this to me: "This isn't your job, lad. You're just holding it for the next person. Your job is to ensure that when you pass it on, it is even received." We never stop fighting to make us, and that improves society as a whole. Then we have to pull the order. The protesters can be in prison for making a stand to fight for what is right. We've seen that enacted. The police, it seems, are now running an enforcement arm of the government. We're back to Audrey. Article 11 of the licensing. In the words of the American civil rights activist John Lewis, never noise, never be afraid to make some trouble, good trouble, necessary trouble. Solidarity with you all, comrades, and solidarity with Palestine.
I told you, didn't I? So now we have a comrade called Stephen Brown. He's speaking as a musician, trade unionist, a socialist, a community activist in Worcestershire.
Thank you, Richard.
Thanks for following that, comrades. That's a tough one, isn't it? We all enjoy music, yeah? We all enjoy the arts. We all need bread and roses, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about tonight, because the core structure of all of this in our country is music education and funding the arts in education. And over the last 13 years, that has been cut to the bone. I'm primarily going to talk to you about music education because that's my sphere, okay? But what I say will also apply to arts funding generally in education. So our problem is not just about academies and free schools, it's about the way the music education system and music education hubs have been set up by this government since 2012, and the damage that that is done and the damage that continues to do. Education hubs now are largely spun out of council control. What that has meant since 2009, the drop in funding has just been absolutely catastrophic. But what it means is that the pay, terms and conditions of music teachers have been devastated. They are leaving the profession in droves. Yet the government's solution over the last few months is fewer and even bigger music education hubs, which will spread resources even thinner. As a testament to the current failure, 15% of kids get continuous music education in schools. Now compare that to private education, where that level is over 50%. That is a massive gap. A-level music take-up in the last decade has halved other subjects. Even the Arts Council has recognised this, and it now requires music NPOs it funds to do community and education outreach. But it's a sticking plaster solution. There's no more money, and musicians are expected to do this work rather than perform, and they often do so at a personal financial loss. Meanwhile, the more informal routes of music education, like in youth and community centres, where lots of new alternative arts and culture has flourished, have also been decimated by the Tories. The net effect of this, and this is the biggest problem, is the starving of the talent pipeline. We are already seeing careers in music and the arts being open to only those from the wealthiest backgrounds. Working class, disadvantaged kids and those from more diverse backgrounds are being squeezed out from the arts. And let's talk about music streaming. I'm sure a lot of you probably enjoy music streaming. You might even have a Spotify account. Well, of that £9.99 a month that you pay to Spotify, just 15 pence goes to the music between all of them, 15 pence. So the UK music industry is worth £4 billion a year. And while I'm standing here, they are making millions per minute. Okay, so streaming is a major problem for musicians because we're not getting the rewards that we deserve. Only a change in the copyright law will change that. So I'm going to give you a few statistics now. I'm sorry about this because statistics can be really boring. Okay, but the average musician earns about 20 grand pension provision. Even when they find themselves in full-time work, the gender pay gap between male and female is over 4 grand a year. Ours is largely a self-employed profession with no safety net. During COVID, many of my colleagues and members, because I work for the MU, but I shouldn't tell you that apparently, during COVID this was ruthlessly exposed because over 40% of musicians got no help whatsoever. Many are now struggling, are still struggling, and have taken other jobs to pay the bills. Just last week, I was out on picket lines and demonstrations with an organisation called Northern Ballet, which is based in Leeds. Now, Northern Ballet's funding, you might like to go to the ballet, you might not, but this is a story that needs to be told. Northern Ballet's funding has been static for over 13 years. That means now that when you go to see a ballet at Northern Ballet, the live musicians that perform that music face the acts. They won't have jobs. Many of them are already using food banks to sustain themselves. Okay? So I'm going to wind up now. There is a solution, of course, and that's the Flamini Network. Fund education properly, to bring music halls back into council control with proper pay terms and conditions like used to be the norm. This will secure a diverse talent pipeline for future generations and ensure future audiences benefit from that. With arts funding now less than it was in 2009, more money and a proper strategy is needed to heal the damage done over 13 years of Tory austerity. Our arts and culture help define us as a nation, so ensuring access to the arts is critical. It's what the public wants, and I think it's what you want, and that's why I'm going to campaign as strong and as hard as I can for the many networks to bring our communities, our musicians, our audiences and our arts organisations together to make sure we demand the funding they deserve. Solidarity from there.
We'll be hearing from Stephen a little bit later, I hope. Is that right, Stephen? Yeah, okay. Just want to introduce another one of the founding members of For the Many. Andrew Feinstein is a former ANC South African MP. He was described as one of their most vocal and talented MPs. And I think you should make special effort to read his book, Shadow World, Inside the Global Arms Trade. I think there's also a documentary about it, by the way. But also, interestingly, Andrew is also in Stormer's constituency.
Thank you, Audrey. I think, first of all, I should say Audrey has asked me to sit down so that you can hear me properly. I think it's actually so you don't realize how short I am. But I think it's also fair to say that I enjoy sitting next to the legend of Audrey White a lot more than my constituency MP. So, you might have heard, there's a big corporate event happening in Liverpool at the moment. It's being organised by a company called Labour Pty Limited. And this event is sponsored by, amongst others, some of Britain's biggest and most corrupt weapons makers. These are the very companies subsidised by our tax pounds who make billions of pounds from the slaughter of innocent people in Yemen, in Ukraine, where they charge a 30% premium. And of course, in Palestine, as we sit here now. And it's for that reason that one of the 12 principles, and I really encourage you to read this leaflet that has all 12 of them on it, is that this network will be committed to a foreign policy that is committed unequivocally to work for peace, the rule of international law, universal human rights, the rights of refugees, and a fair, non-racialized immigration in this country. What this network is saying is that the majority of us in this country want peace, not profits. What the majority of us in this country want is to put people before profit. And key to putting people before profit is our principle in which we state an uncompromising opposition to all forms of racism and discrimination. As my former boss Nelson Mandela said, you are either opposed to every form and type of racism and discrimination, or you are part of the racism problem. And Martin Ford, a KC appointed by my constituency MP to look into racism in the Labour Party, has told us clearly and unequivocally where Keir Starmer's Labour Party stands when it comes to racism. Let us be clear. This network, which aims to bring together people at the grassroots, will be proudly anti-racist. We will bring people, all people, together. We will create again in this country a politics for the people, by the people, not a politics that is for the elite, by the elite, in the interests only of the elite. This network will bring back to Britain the hope that we had between 2015 and 2019. The hope that will be encapsulated by a politics for the many, by the many. Thank you.
Many of you here will know Tracy Hodson. Tracy is very, very well known in Liverpool. She's probably one of those hard-working, long-standing activists in our city. Tracy is a trade unionist. She's an art comrade. She's also my neighbour and my friend. She's an anti-racist and a socialist. She's a PCS NEC member. She's a vice chair of the National Black Members Committee, but she's speaking as an individual at this meeting.
Welcome, everybody. Now, what we've said in the criteria, we're on about 12 principles here, not pledges, principles, which is basically, like your moral core. This is what should be. This is how it should be. And I'm going to speak on the one for public ownership of all public services and infrastructure, including utilities and transport. I listen to the government, they keep saying, that basically the prices are going up. What we're doing here is we're building profit. This should never be about came together at that particular point in a room very similar to this, is what I'm saying, in a room very similar to this, where what in fact people came together and said is, we've got to stop the closure of the law centre, the 4 law centres across the city. You know what we lost? We lost that battle in 2014, but that campaign then became a campaign for a new law centre. It was one where those individuals decided, you know what, we're not going to take no for an answer. There's a right to justice, there's a right to fight injustice and inequality, and we want to take that forward. So what happened is those individuals, and I stand on the shoulders of great people. I had a peripheral role at that particular point in time. In 2016, after a community campaign, after union branches had pledged money, after people gave their hard-earned cash, and after we got a small amount of money, we opened in a closed-down citizens' advice centre in Moss Side in Manchester. It was half a member of staff and 40 volunteers. Fast forward now to today, and I have the great privilege, and I stand in a personal capacity, great privilege of running an organisation that has 15 staff. We have 7 lawyers. But we continue to keep, we have 40 volunteers. But what I would argue is I'm not here, and where's Laura? I'm not a lawyer to start off with, first things first. But also as well, we do not define ourselves as providing advice. We define ourselves as a campaign for community justice. And what does that mean? The way that we've defined it, and we sort of predate you on some of this stuff, we are for the right to a decent job, the right to a decent home, the right to an end to structural and individual discrimination. This one, here we go. The right to a decent income and a social security system that treats people with dignity. But the 5th element is the right to enforce those other 4. And that's the fist itself that we articulate in terms of the work that we actually do. So what I'd be saying is what does that mean in terms of the way that we operate? We go to picket lines. We are there when workers are in struggle. Why? Because every employment work starts on the picket line. We're there with people's benefits of the employment. Why? Because the right to a decent income is washed away when people's money is taken away itself. We fight in terms of evictions, both in terms of the court, but also outside the court. We host in our organisation, Greater Manchester Tenants Union. We're working with them in a thing called the Greater Manchester Housing Justice Network to try and collectivise the struggle. It's not about being a clever lawyer. It's not about one lawyer taking people into a room and talking and telling people about the law. It's about collectivising in terms of the way we work. We do advice assemblies. We're looking to try and do that. Why? Because the law, half the time, is an ass. Justice and the law are 2 different things. We fight for community justice, which means actually changing the law. But how do we do that? And that's about bringing people together, both through this network and others. And this is the final thing I would say. It's a bit of a challenge. And that is, we've also going to have to break the echo chamber. We're an organisation, we think we've done some of that work. We're not perfect. But it's about going outside of our normal structures. There's lots of people. This isn't about politics. This is about justice. This is about a community justice that we ourselves should strive for and that our communities themselves deserve. So I'm really interested in terms of where the network's going to go. We hope to be part of it, but I'll come back to you on that. But in terms of an alignment, there are lots of other organisations like mine. Build the network and get in contact with the networks that already exist, because you're already 50% of the way there. Thank you, and
Our next speaker, thanks very much, Jason. Really interesting to hear what you have to say about justice. It's something that is very scarce these days. I want to introduce Phil Maxwell. Phil Maxwell is very well known, I think, London and in Liverpool. He's a trade unionist, he's an NUG member, he's a filmmaker, and he's an LGBTQ+ campaigner. And he's also an acclaimed photographer. He's filming us here tonight with his partner, Haz. And welcome, to Bill Maxwell.
Thanks for that, Audrey. Not so long ago, Shuella Braverman said that if you were gay or a woman, that was not a good enough excuse to be a refugee. Just think about that. Just think about the women across the world who are being penalised, oppressed, tortured because they're a woman. And that's irrelevant as far as the toxic toolbox of the Tories is concerned. And that toxic toolbox, which all of these ministers and the Tory party relies on to divide us, is being emptied out in a very desperate and worrying way at the moment. The whole of British history by LGBT people. I should say I'm actually filling in for the LGBT speaker and Audrey phoned me up and asked me if I'd do that. So obviously I didn't say no. And if we look back to the miners' strike, the LGBT community came out in strength and supported the miners. And if you look at what's happening now, look at what's happening in Liverpool, look at the strikes we've had here of the railway workers campaigning for better pay and conditions and for proper travel facilities for disabled people, you'll always find LGBT people there. The same with the bus drivers, the same with the FBU. They've been very, very active in all of these disputes. And the reason why we are active in these disputes is because you cannot win socialism if you just treat things as a single issue. The only way you get socialism if we work together, if we're united, and if we fight together. And that's what this meeting is all about. A previous speaker, quite a few previous speakers actually, have mentioned the launch event issues that we're here to put out there. And Tracy did that very eloquently. Tracy's also, like myself, a member of the Merseyside Pensioners Association. She's in the youth section. I was reassured earlier by Audrey that I'm still in the youth section of the NPA, because in the NPA, 70 is the new 40. So, comrades, it's all about working together. And one thing I've learned in this movement, in my modest 70 years of experience, is that it's when we come together that things start to happen. Not when Keir Starmer and his spin doctors come together. That is not going to be savers. It's our action. It's our solidarity. And we've got to remember that we live in a world where you can be put into prison and you can actually be hung or guillotined if you're an LGBT person. And when I heard Shuella Braverman talk about gay people not being able to be refugees, it hit me personally, because Haswan, who's filming here today, 25 years ago, almost to the day, the Blair government wanted to throw him, and they wouldn't accept the fact that he was gay. If he was to return to his country of birth, he could get 10 years imprisonment, or if he was lucky, 50 lashings instead of the imprisonment. Anyway, he's here. So thanks to the people who campaigned to keep him here. And it wasn't a Labour government that went in here. It was people coming together and supporting us. And we don't achieve anything, comrades, unless we work together. Solidarity to you all. Freedom to Palestine. The APA manifesto, get your copy of the manifesto, it's free, and it's a bit more detailed than the other policies that I put back. APA manifesto, they're free and they're at the back. You can actually pay a pound if you want.
Thanks very much, Bill. It did turn into a bit of a MPA rally, that seemed you were stepping in for Dee Hughes. Well, so she sends her apologies. Now, Kevin Dolan is going to speak for us now for 4 minutes. He's timed it. I've known Kevin for decades. He's an absolute amazing campaigner. You know, he always says, I'm going to crack your joke now, if you don't mind, Kev. He always says he's been disabled all his life because he's an Everton supporter. So Kevin is... Kevin campaigns, you know, for obviously in terms of disability, but he first and foremost is a socialist and a campaigner for justice. And welcome, Kevin.
This is one of the most difficult things about the talk because Audrey asked me to speak and said, keep it brief. I promise I will be brief. Okay. I always say that as a survivor of thalidomide, I'm the product of unregulated, greedy, corrupt capitalism. I'm here to briefly speak about the current so-called cost of living crisis, or rather the cost of greed crisis. It's affecting disabled people generally. Of course, everyone apart from the very wealthy are suffering from the reactionary policies of the Tories and the inaction of the Labour Party leadership, our so-called opposition. Disabled people, despite recent equalities legislation, are still more likely to be unemployed because of access to education, inaccessible housing, and decent accessible public transport, to name just a few basic social factors. And during times of rampant deliberate austerity, these barriers are even more insurmountable. And in some ways, I used to belong to an organisation called Direct Action Network, an organisation run by and for disabled people. And we've been involved in like protests in London. We would handcuff ourselves to buses in Trafalgar Square, or handcuff ourselves to the trains to fight for accessible public transport. And we did achieve an awful lot in terms of equality for disabled people. But I feel it's kind of like reversed under this Tory government. We're going back to the Victorian age. A lot of disability user-led organisations have been incorporated by big business or have just collapsed altogether because of lack of funding, etc., etc. I'll just skip this bit, hang on. Bear with. Yeah, I've been involved in like various political movements throughout my whole life. In the 80s, I was arrested twice campaigning with the Snowball campaign, where we go to an American airbase and protest against cruise missiles that were put here by the Americans. I went on every single demonstration going, anti-apartheid in South Africa, all the anti-war demos, etc., etc. But it was only with the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn that I truly had genuine hope that we could really bring about real change in place of this terrible Tory regime. And yeah, identity politics definitely has a place, but I realised through Jeremy that actually the biggest struggle is the class struggle. And once we get over the class struggle, then a lot of all these issues can be resolved. And as far as I'm concerned, Jeremy Corbyn was the best leader the Labour Party ever had since Keir. Not that imposter. That bloke who's quite happy to write for Murdoch's skull. Despite the media and pro-Starmer propaganda, I think for me and those who are either kicked out of the Labour Party or decided to leave on our own volition, it's not about getting over the loss of Jeremy Corbyn, one man. When people say get over Jeremy Corbyn, they don't realise it's not only struggle to get over, it's the loss of genuine hope and opportunity to eliminate poverty. To restore the NHS and have a society where well-being comes before profit. That's hard to get over, which is why I'm here today to talk about how we can fight back, irrespective of what the current Labour Party leadership is trying to do to stop us. Starmer and Co support the Tories by not promising to restore the money cut when it comes to the NHS, education, etc. But are happy to find money for obscene amounts of military spending and replacing tribes, plus their backing of oppressive public protest laws and anti-trade union laws, to name just a few things socialists should be fighting against. Starmer won't reverse these cruel cuts because their economic values are identical to the Tories. He won't be seen dead on a picket line, but he will back the bosses when they want to increase profits at the expense of the workers. Nor will he reverse oppressive legislation because he'll want out. So we need an alternative to all the mainstream neoliberal reformist options and the need to build a coalition amongst other socialists. That's why I'm so excited to be part of this network. I know there have been other incarnations of cooperation on the left, but I'm confident that this movement will prove more radical and not be hijacked or infiltrated by those wishing to undermine our politics. We can do this for the many, not the few. Thank you.
Sorry, I meant to say Kevin is also a member of DPAC. So thanks very much, all the speakers. We have some time now, I must say, with all the clapping and speakers going over, we are a bit short on contributions from the floor. We've probably got about half an hour. So can I just say that at the end of this meeting, I hope you've got an understanding of the principles. Take a leaflet with you. If you haven't looked on the Facebook, on the Twitter, on whatever else we've got out there, I want you, to look for that information. Take a leaflet with you now today. But these are the principles that will unite us for. We don't have to be looking at each other and saying, where we disagree. We have to look at each other and say where we agree. And if you agree, I look at my life, and I fought wherever I stood. I always did. When I fought in the dispute at Lady at Lord John, and I was in my union, we united, we fought together, all of us. Couldn't have won without the dockers, the car workers, the unemployed centres, the men, the women on my picket line. Then when the union wasn't fighting like it should, when I went back to work, I had to force the union to support me. And that's the battle that we always have. And each time, I'm glad to say, I've been very lucky to win. Same with the attacks from the Jewish Chronicle. Very, very lucky to have fought and had the support of the Merseyside pensioners and won, and absolutely cut through the lies that are being used to destroy good people like Ken Loach, loads of it right across the country. And so it's wherever you stand, whether you're in any party, whatever party you're in, Socialist Party, SWP, any of them, the Breakthrough Party, the Independents, we've got to unite. We can't fail anymore. We've got a responsibility to the planet. We've got a responsibility internationally. We've got a responsibility for all those people who are living and continue to live under austerity with frozen wages and rising prices, no homes to live in, not being able to afford heating and so on. So this is where we are, and this is what this organisation is about. And I hope you, if you would like to ask a question of anyone on the panel or to make a contribution, please do so in the spirit of what we're trying to do here. Only 2 minutes, if you like, if you would. And please be very, very clear in what you're saying. We want to work together. There's a genuine hope that we can work together and build a social movement, because it's only through massive social movements. It's never, Tony Benn used to say, somebody on a white charger who comes and changes things for us. It's not. It's always from movements from below. And that's the way we win. And that's the way we'll have to work together from now on. So please, if you've got any questions, please put your hands up now. Yeah, comrade, do you want to come up? No, we need you to say at the beginning, comrade, if you could come up, because we've got the film doing, we'd like you, you can make your way you up if you'd like to come next. And then you can come and just... Sorry, what, can you give your names first, please?
My name is Steve Freeman. I'm a part of the Republican Labour Education Forum.
Lovely, thank you.
And I want to simply say a little bit, and I like everything that people say, about what I think is the elephant in the room. And I think the elephant in the room that everybody's talked about, but nobody's actually highlighted. And that is the fact that democracy in this country is broken. The Westminster Parliament is broken. And we have to fix it. Now, the idea of hubs as grassroots democracy is part of the answer to democracy. But if you look at the principles, the 13th principle, the one that's missing, that ought to be highlighted, and I say that in the spirit of cooperation, is democracy and how we tackle that. And the Republican Labour Education Forum would like to cooperate with you in however we can, because we've been working on policies around the idea of democracy. So I say in that spirit of cooperation.
I wasn't expecting to be doing this today. My name is Cassie Perry. I'm from Banbury in North Oxfordshire, and activist and trade unionist. I just wanted to make a comment of solidarity and encouragement. I think many of us have been waiting for this for 3 years, for something like this. In North Oxfordshire, when we realised our CLP had ceased to really be anything other than a little councillors club, we set up the North Oxford Socialist Alliance, which essentially did all the things that a CLP should do. So you might have seen our banner, if you've been in the Black Key thing, it's a very cool banner. It's Jeremy's favourite banner. But you might say that to everybody. But we've done all of those things that a CLP should do, strike support. We've got into our community groups, we're part of food security, community gardens. I'm the secretary of the Banbury Interfaith Network. We've got all of those. That's an existing hub. And if we've done that, I'm sure there are hundreds of people that have done that. You know, I made the mistake of chucking my hat in the ring to be the parliamentary candidate and found myself immediately subject to an anti-Semitism complaint. As happens when you're a member of Jewish Voice for Labour with Jewish heritage. I never quite worked it out, but I'm sure it will make sense one day. But it was a point of encouragement. I've been waiting for this for a long time. Thank you for doing it. And there's lots of us out there. We're not starting from the bottom up. And I'll see you all on the battlefield.
So Tracy, I think I saw Tracy Scott put her hand up before. Has she gone out? Sorry, and then you have to. Sorry. I just saw Tracy.
Hi, I'm Anne San, and I'm also part of the youth section of the Merseyside Pensioners. I think I am the oldest member. I'm also retired 6 weeks ago as an NHS nurse, and I was on the whole time that we were on strike. And I have to tell you this, we've opened the tiger's mouth now, because we're not going away. And that fight may be over temporarily, so things will happen. I was also part of the demonstration on Saturday, and at the Save Liverpool Women's Hospital, and it was all about saving the NHS. And you would not believe the amount of people that still do not know in this city that the Liverpool Women's Hospital is under threat. So really, that campaign that Mary spoke about before is just really there. But I've got a very personal reason for wanting to bring hope back, because I've been an activist. I'm 66, okay. Since I've been born, since I joined the Labour Party Young Socialists when I was 17 years old, because I knew there was another way. Now I've realised the Labour Party is not the way for me to go, because it's lost any socialist principles that it ever had. And the one thing that came to me is I firmly believe that everybody has the right to healthcare, no matter how much money you've got. But what we've got in this country now is, we were talking before about homeless and poverty and people who haven't got houses. We've got health poverty in this country. We've got it from region to region. And I'll tell you a short story. What I am absolutely passionate about is that we need to go back and look at the fundamentals. And some of the fundamentals is the renationalisation of pharmaceutical companies that they're in the business of treating, not curing. And I was told that a long time ago by somebody who used to work at quite a high level in a pharmaceutical company. And you've only just got to realise how many millions these are making. My daughter lost her life 14 months ago after a very 5-year fight against cancer. And the NHS, her treatment cost absolutely thousands and thousands. Now that money didn't go into the National Health Service, that went into the private coffers of those pharmaceutical companies. Now my daughter got very good treatment, but it's very, very different. And what I was banging the drum about 5 or 6 years ago when my daughter, I was saying, hang on a minute, where are all these young women coming from? They're all in their 30s and their 40s and they've got stage 4 cancer. I had never seen it. I have been banging the drum. I've had doctors saying to me, oh no, because you're so involved in it. And then 2 weeks ago, The Independent published a report to say that the biggest rise of stage 4 cancer was in those young groups between 30 and 50. So I am passionate that research and development cannot be in the hands of these private pharmaceutical companies. If we can have a global response to the COVID pandemic, we can have a global response to the world epidemic of not just cancer with young women, but with young people, young children, which is on the up. We're treating more, and that's great. And there's more people that are getting treated, that's great. But the question we should be asking is, why are so many? I know you're trying to finish me up here. Starmer actually said that he was going to put an additional £16 billion in for nurses and doctors to work overtime to get lists down. What cloud is he on? We are exhausted from working. Most nurses and most doctors are already working unpaid overtime, and it's an insult to every NHS worker to say you're going to be working longer and we might give you a few more crumbs. I could go on for ages and ages, but I actually
not going to.
This for me is the start of hope. It's the start of a movement for change. It's not the building of a party, it's the building of a movement. And I am absolutely, for me, there seems to be no limits to any cash to fund wars or to send for. Why are we not? And it It was an endless amount that went to HS2. That money that could have been spent building houses, building schools, all of those things, and taking and pouring the money into the NHS, except it might take 20 minutes off your train journey from Liverpool to Manchester. Most of us don't give a bloody shit about that. We care about the here and now, what's going to happen in the future.
Same people. This is the feeling here is great, isn't it? And what people have said, described the fact that the working class is being screwed at the present, and we're in a situation where we've tried all sorts of things, and we're in a mess really. So it's good to see such a thing. Class struggle, comrades have mentioned, it doesn't go away. We're living in capitalist society. We've got no option but to struggle, and that takes many different forms. Network is one of them. And I wanted to mention, just for class memory, if you like, the 10 hours bill. Back in the 1800s, I can't remember the year, but working class was organised and fighting, and it won the 10 hours a day bill, won that through Parliament. So it was forced, we forced the Parliament through mass action and campaigning to reduce hours, and then you could actually spend a few hours learning and studying in a day's work, because when it was 15 hours and more people going to work, it was like that. And it's impossible, always damn difficult to develop yourself in that situation. This was done against the government. Which government? There was no Labour Party in the 1800s. It doesn't matter, actually, which government's in power. What we win depends upon how we're organised. And how, it depends on the strength of struggle. On the other hand, the politics is important, and I agree with the comrade that spoke about democracy. We need to have political aims too, because we've got to get rid of the monarchy and the House of Lords. You don't need a second house, right? You don't need a second house. The idea of having two houses of Parliament is that when MPs are pressured by mass action, when they're pressured to do something, the second house can put a brake on it and wait till the pressure's gone, That's what it's for. So we should get rid of that, and we should have what the Chartists campaigned for was annual parliaments, so that the MPs are always under pressure, always ready to be replaced and recalled. Briefly, I want to say that party is also important. I came into the Young Communist League in 1960, when many of you were young too. But yes, and the Communist Party, all until it finished off, when eventually it closed itself down, and they made what they called a democratic network. I must say I didn't like it, because we actually need a party. They are centrally organised. The ruling class has now it's got two parties of its own, hasn't it, if not more. But we need our own party, which is a communist party or a Marxist party that actually aims to get rid of capitalism and to go to socialism and communism, which is a stateless, moneyless, classless society.
Thank you very much, comrade.
That's it. Party is also important.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
Going further, I act as the agent for the Trade Union and Socialist Coalition on Merseyside. And activists within that, like myself and the Socialist Party, recognised, well, you only have to have read Tony Benn's diaries in the 90s to see how the rot started in the Labour Party with the Blair takeover. I think everyone here has laid out the arguments as to why we need a socialist alternative. What I would appeal is, with the welcoming of the setting up of a campaigning network, but alongside that, not only do we need, of course, to combat capitalism industrially, but we also need to fight electorally. Now, no one's expecting everyone to sign up to the Trade Unionists and Socialist Coalition in the here and now. then what I would appeal is, and I'm looking forward to the fact that some of you may wish to stand in as councillors, as candidates for MPs on an anti-austerity, anti-cuts, anti-capitalist programme. The general election will probably be in May 2024, and I'm hoping that Jeremy Corbyn will stand in the constituency against the Labour Party and propose a socialist platform that many of us can also stand on in our own constituencies, in the local authorities, etc. Now, if people are interested in standing for council, we will, as we've done before, operate an electoral pact that is of non-competition, and even to give support, we have people who've been election agents. I mean, I was an election agent in the Labour Party before I was expelled, after we led the Militant Socialist Council in the 80s. That was my reward for voting for houses and jobs. They said I was too obsessed by these issues to stay in the Labour Party. So I'll make an appeal to say, along with the campaigning that's necessary, this network's laid out, we also need to replace the rats in the councils who are implementing the thing, not just the revenue. If you won't change their minds, they're too interested in filling in the expense forms that they get to bring harm to the people of this city and other working class areas in the country.
Thanks very much, Roy. Colleagues, I'm going to have to cut the discussion now. I feel like we have had, a lot of speakers, and I'm quite sure you would much prefer to be listening to, rather than putting Ken on the train without having a chance to listen to him. We can give him some space to speak about the Fermanagh network. And can I just say before Ken speaks, if you want a campaign against the council cuts, come on Friday at 12 o'clock to Picton Road, outside the one stop. And within 3 years, we've been making our campaign, Don't leave us on our own. Massive support from everybody in the traffic and everything. Come along and join us. We need to build that campaign. We have to fight the council as well as the MPs, the councils as well as the MPs. So I do need to introduce our speaker, Ken Loach, one of the founding members of the Fermanagh network. Ken, more than anything, is an activist. He's an activist, a political activist. He's been so all his life. Not only does he use all of his talent, absolutely wonderful talent for making the films that affect people, from Kathy Come Home right to the Old Oak, which is his latest film. I'm sure you're all waiting to see. At the end of the day, those films impact on people, and people who see their lives and film that are never ever reported anywhere are absolutely utter relief to see the lives of working class people reflected in Ken's films, and the political statements they make are really, really powerful. So not only is Ken an activist and a filmmaker, he also won 2 Palm Doors. Honestly, God. I am 72, like it was a senior moment. But Ken is a wonderful activist. I want an example to every single one of us. Every single one of us. Ken is even going to be speaking on Zoom on Wednesday at our Pensioners Association. So he does everything. He pours out all the stops for our movement. So, starting off this the Many Network, it's tremendous. So I hope that you put the slightest bit of effort that Ken has put in, and we will have a movement like no other. So
And it's a real joy to be back in the Casa, which I first came up shortly after it had opened, actually. And it's a great place, and great to see Tony Nelson back fitting well. And so thanks for the warm introduction. I have to say, a little irrelevant story. You struggled over the barn door. We did a film called The Wind That Shakes the Barley in Ireland. An actor there called Martin Lucy was from a little town called Mallow near Cork. And the local paper said that Martin Lucy had won the Carter door. So we gave him a photo of my screen. Anyway, look, it's been an extraordinary meeting. I think we weren't, well, I for one wasn't quite certain how the afternoon would go. But there's been some extraordinary speeches from the contributors. And I think they've made the point, really, as to the need for this network, the possibility of it, and the great people who can contribute to it and make it work. But I just wanted, or I thought I would take a stock take of where we are and why we had discussions and how we came to the conclusion that a network of campaigns and organizations was the first step that was possible to take now, the most constructive step. And if we look back and we look back to Jeremy Corbyn's leadership with John McDonnell and the others, a small group who formed that leadership. In fact, John said to us, I met him shortly after they'd won the leadership, and he said, I don't think he's breaking a confidence. He said, there's 8 or 9 of us, and the rest of them want to destroy us. And they had to accept the business of forming a shadow cabinet, forming an official opposition, with every one of the buggers behind them trying to kill them. I mean, and I think when we're sometimes critical and say, well, they were overwhelmed, you know, they didn't do the right tactics.
Speaking to the mic because I can't hear you downstairs.
Okay, downstairs, okay.
I was told to say that.
Sorry. Can you hear me downstairs? Okay. So that was the problem they had. But just think what they achieved. You okay downstairs? Okay, very good. Just think what they achieved. An extraordinary program, very similar to the ideas we put on the back of this piece of paper, similar to the ideas that people have called for. Public ownership, human rights, trading in rights from day one, a real green program to protect the environment. The basic principles that we've set down, they were the principles that underlay that program of 2017. They also achieved the biggest political party in Europe, 600,000 members. What an achievement! You didn't hear that mentioned now, of course. No, keep quiet about that. What an achievement! And also the 2017 election, which was a huge swing to Labour, a huge swing. And that the campaign against, and particularly even Jeremy, began before that. And the most toxic smear, allegation that they could think of was that he was a racist, and that was a lie, and we know it was a lie, but never mind. In the years following 2017, the ruling class really got scared. And that's when the whole establishment moved against him. It's tempted to say the deep state moved against him, really. I mean, think of the general who said, the army will not tolerate Corbyn as prime minister. Quoted in the Sunday Times, I believe, or one of the Sunday papers. No, nothing done against him. A serving general. Nothing done against him. How extraordinary. And so the campaign moved on, the lies were told, and this is the key thing. When they wanted to get someone to attack him, they didn't go to the Tories, they didn't go to Murdoch. Who did they go to? The Labour right wing. They were the ones who put the dagger in.
Yes.
So that's what happened there. And we know the consequences. And the media played a huge role in that. And it's interesting, isn't it, that Keir Starmer was invited to the Durham Miners Association gala, amazing working class event, 200,000 people. He was too busy. But he wasn't too busy to go to Murdoch's, one of Murdoch's events. And that tells you the whole story. He did what Blair did. Rolled over on his back and had his tummy tickled by Murdoch. So that Murdoch went oppose it. And that's his technique. So that's happened. And Starmer's achievement, what's Starmer's achievement? Starmer's achievement is duplicity, making commitments that he knew he would betray. He knew it. Putting his arm around Jeremy Corbyn in 2019, famous photograph. What did he know he was going to do? Put a knife between his ribs at the first opportunity. There's a level of personal treachery there that is sheerly unforgivable, despicable. I think the few people I have more contempt for than Jeremy. That level of personal treachery. You think about it. Put your arm around somebody, knowing to be photographed because he wanted the leadership, and he knew you had Corbyn supporters, and putting your arm around someone, knowing you were lying and knowing what you planned. There are words, no words to describe it. That's his achievement. And then to remove the left, twisting the rules of the party, ignoring the rules of the party, disciplinary procedures at a kangaroo court, breaking. There is no natural justice now, I believe. That's been removed. So that's his great achievement. And now we have, and speaker after speaker has made this point. We have poverty on a level we've never experienced before. I mean, I was a child in the 40s, and we were at war, and I remember the post-war years. There were no food banks then. No food banks then. And I believe in the last year, they went up, well, at least over 30 or 50%, the number of food banks. To think children now go hungry in this country unless you put an extra tin in the collecting basket at the supermarket. And those financial penalties for people who were desperate, who needed the financial support of the state because they were vulnerable, because they were too ill to work, or they were incapable of working, that began under Labour. And of course, no mention from the shadow cabinet at the moment that they will do anything other than maintain the financial penalties for people desperate, knowing they will impose hunger. That's the consequence. You take money away from people with nothing, they're going to go hungry. And they do that knowingly. There's a kind of wickedness there, isn't it? I mean, I won't go through the whole litany of the difficulties that people are having. But there's a sense of fear, there's a sense of despair, there's a sense of what's the point? And it's understandable because you turn on the mainstream media, you turn on the BBC, and this is the other achievement of the media. They have wiped out Jeremy Corbyn and Donald Trump's programme. It's not part of the public discourse. And that's one of the key reasons why we need to put politics right back in people's minds. The ideas we talked about in this leaflet, these are the ideas, the principles that we have to base our politics on. But they're great. And the hypocrisy of it, the BBC celebrates its independence, celebrates its objectivity, its impartiality, at the same time taking a decision that Corbyn's programme will not feature in public debate, won't feature. And that's how they control us. That's how they manipulate consciousness. And this is a battle for consciousness. This is a battle for ideas. It's a battle for actually connecting your experience to the causes of it. And of course, what they do, their great trick, is to say, it's not us, it's people who are poorer than you. It is the small boats. It is these people fleeing murder, torture, killings, hunger, oppression. It's their fault. Keep them out. So, the Tories' idea, I think, those gated communities that some of them live in, that's their idea for this country. The equivalent of a gated community, keep out. No, it's well, words fairly
Plus for fascism
how they
and Labour is dead. Now is solidarity for the left.
Okay,
For the workers.
Sorry, comrade, can you be quiet?
I think we're not disagreeing on that. So you're all right. But I think the other thing that's emerged, and this is what struck us, is that the left is very active. There are campaigns, there are a whole series of new parties, some people fighting the good fight in the Labour Party and making as much fuss on this as making the case as strongly as they can, though we know it's a losing battle, and I think they know too, but they're there. There's campaigns on poverty, on hunger, there's campaigns on housing, council housing, for refugees, for poverty, for the environment, many campaigns on the environment, campaigns on human rights, campaigns on single issue politics. And someone said, that's good, but the key question is we can link that, because the people who are the corporations that are demanding more use of fossil fuel are the same corporations who are imposing the gig economy. Casual work. Work 12 hours a day just to get a living wage. You're a subcontractor. You aren't a worker. No trade union rights, no holiday pay, no sick pay. You don't turn up, we're going to fine you if you haven't fulfilled your contract. Good people working 12 hours, people doing 2 jobs, care workers, casual labour. And I think that move to casual labour, the lack of trade union rights, that is the same enemy that is demanding the continued destruction of the planet. So we have to link that. We have to link those campaigns. And that's the great possibility of this, because we know there won't be an electoral agreement before the next election. And what we are saying, or what we are hoping that you will accept, is that we're not saying, leave what you're doing and come and join us. Not at all. Don't leave the campaigns. Keep the campaigns going. Link with others. Because that way, then we build a real solid base. And that's the solid base that can be our first step. And the principles that we discussed and we put on this leaflet have been well explained by people particularly active in the health service. Tracy and Anne and talking about the health service and what a desperate tragedy that is at the moment, and the absolute corruption of this streeting, what's his name, Streeting and Starmer welcoming in, and we know they will welcome the private health companies. They've said as much. There is a role for private health, they say. We know that when they talk about community hubs, we know what their community hubs are in private healthcare. So we know that. So it is so important to return to the principles of Nye Bevan, who founded the health service, and kick the profiteers and the subcontractors and the outsourcing out of the health service. His official said, because he was housing minister, at the same time as health minister, the same department, and he said, no, we need 2 lavatories for working class families in the homes, outside and upstairs. And the official said, that's daft. We can't afford that. You know, well, one lavatory upstairs is surely enough. He said, no, when the kids come in from the garden, if they've got to go upstairs, somebody's got to spend time cleaning the stairs. No. He said, nothing is too good for the working class. Council housing, absolutely essential. I mean, the housing crisis is, none of them have a proper answer to that. Jeremy Corbyn and John had the programme was 100,000 council houses a year, and regeneration as well. I mean, it needs to be more now because it's got so appalling. Full employment rights from day one, absolutely. We need a new welfare state. Because we have to tackle the poverty and the hunger. I've talked about the hunger, and if we need a new welfare state, and it went from the cradle to the grave. I mean, it's saying we're good neighbours. It's saying we care about each other. If you're falling down, we come and give you a hand up. And that we are generous people in our lives, and yet we elect politicians who are the epitome of meanness and selfishness. Yeah. And we have to re-establish a new welfare state and re-establish that consciousness. Thatcher killed it. Yeah. It wasn't the public good, it was private greed. Look after yourself. We've got to establish we care for each other. We care for each other. And if you're in trouble, we're here to pick you up. And that's the bedrock of a new welfare state. The environment we know about. And Steve spoke brilliantly about the arts and sport. You know, we want bread but roses too. I mean, great slogan. There's not many things I like come across the Atlantic, but that's certainly one. And the economy. On the left, we tend not to talk about the economy too much. But I think a key phrase, and it's on my old Labour Party card, and it was ripped out by Blair, and it's the old clause 4, that workers by hand or by trade shall enjoy the full fruits of their labour under the best possible plan for common ownership. So I forget the word for the rest. The full fruits of their labour. Now that can be a wage in your pocket, or it can be a social wage. Health, education, pensions, and so on. But if you look at it, it leaves no room for profit. No room for someone to rip you off. So let's have an economy based on that. Common ownership. I did a bit of research back into the Civil War the other week, and it struck me that demand for common ownership goes back way back. I think it goes back to the Bible, but it certainly goes back to our country in the 14th century, the Peasants' Revolt, when John Ball, the preacher, said, "Nothing shall go well in England, nor ever shall, till all things be held in common." And then Gerard Winstanley in the Civil War in the 17th century said, "The earth shall be a common treasury." Common treasury for all livelihoods to share. That's whatever your job. We all share it equally. So this is a historic demand, and it has finally come to its historic necessity. Because if we don't plan the economy, if we don't plan the use of the world's resources, this planet will die. And we know that. And last year, and this is from a man whose name I've jotted down and now forgotten, College of Age, and he is an Oxford professor. and he pointed out that last year we burned more fossil fuel than at any time in our history, and last year the subsidies for fossil fuel were greater than they've ever been in our past. And we know the problems. We know what the cliff we are heading for. Now that's the law of the market. That's the interest of corporations pursuing profit regardless. And you know what the Pope said about pursuing profits regardless? He said it is the dung of the devil. So we've got the Pope on our side. So the key element is, this is the key element. We can do this. All those campaigns, single issue campaigns, all the great activists we've seen here, they're everywhere. We won't unite on who to vote for the next election, but we can unite on the ideas. And those ideas can be the stone, the stepping stone on which we build a political movement. When we begin with the grassroots. And so this is not an organization where there'll be instructions from the top. It is about facilitating connection. It is linking people up. It's one group learning from another. One group has a great idea. Good, pass it on. We'll all do it. We can learn about our past, as you said, as Ian said. Hear those stories about our occasional victories, great victories, and the defeats, but we learn. Like a football team, you learn most from defeats, and my God, we got some lessons of that. So we can do it. We can do it. People have talked about hope, and I'll finish on this. The writer I work with, Paul Laverty, is a wonderful friend and comrade. He's fond of quoting something, apparently the saint said, "Hope has two beautiful daughters, anger and courage. Anger at the way things are, and courage to change them." We've got the courage.
Thanks very much. Listen, can you just wait if anyone wants to think, well, I heard Ken, I want to run off. You can't, because you've got to sign up if you like what you heard and you agree with what you heard. We would like you to sign up at the bar to become part of the network. The other thing I'd like you to, online. You can sign up online or you can sign up at the bar as well. Sorry. It's on the go for Twitter for the many, Twitter @for the many _net, email for the many network @gmail.com, and Facebook for the many network. Also, for the many network.org.uk.
The website's not up.
The website is not up just yet. So comrades, can you please don't break up the meeting. We've got a fabulous activist here who I'd like you to listen to. His name is Teo Aluko. He's an actor, he's a writer, and he's a singer. He takes his play, particularly on pole ropes and all across the world, to remind people of the stature of Paul Robeson and his history. Tonight he's going to sing to us, but I want to remind you also that Teo Aluko is a tremendous activist. He's recently demonstrated against Elbit factories for Palestine Action. He was arrested and he is now a criminal. So we're very proud to introduce a criminal, a comrade of ours, talented man and a fantastic activist, Terry Aluka.
Thank you, Audrey. Thank you. I am not a criminal. I am a convict. I am a convict, and considering the criminals in power, none of whom has any conviction about anything about them. And considering the great people who have been imprisoned so that I can be here sharing a space with you, people like Nelson Mandela, people like Martin Luther King Jr., etc., etc., etc. The conviction for fighting against Elbit systems whose bombs and drones are at work in Israel and Palestine as we speak. Is a conviction is a badge that I wear with pride. Yes, I'm not a professor, I'm just saying. It's interesting that in Israel, Palestine right now, there was that wonderful image of the JCB tearing down the fence. And that reminds me of a song that has been passed down to me and us by our ancestors who were enslaved, Joshua at the Battle of Jericho. So please join in. And the lyric in it that I love is, Joshua commanded the children to shout, and the walls came tumbling down. Which is what this is, you know, when we get together, there's nothing that can stop us. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho. That's too high. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, and the walls come a-tumbling down. You may talk about your king of Gideon, you may talk about your man of Saul. There's none like a good old Joshua at the battle of Jericho. Up to the walls of Jericho, he marched with sword in hand. Go blow them ram horns, Joshua cried, 'cause the battle lamb in my hand. Then the lamb ram sheep horns begin to blow, the trumpets begin to sound. Joshua commanded the children to shout, and the walls come tumbling down. But morning, Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, and the walls come tumbling down. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, and the walls come tumbling down.
Just we have to interrupt us for a few minutes. There's two things that's got to happen now. Ken has got to make a fast escape out that door, and you've all got to be thinking about how much you can put into the bucket from the people who are collecting outside as you go when you do decide to leave. So I'd like you to make a donation as much as you can to help us build this movement. And to say goodbye to Ken. before you all run out, can you please, I'd like to just make a vote of thanks from the floor here, from every single one of you, to Ali Reynolds and all of the Liverpool comrades who organised this event tonight. There's no idea the amount of work that you're doing, so thanks so much, Ali. You've been absolutely brilliant. So thank you. Yeah, I think Teo's singing. Are you singing another song? Yeah. Oh yeah, before we leave, we also have the Bleeding Hearts. Absolutely fabulous. They'll be playing straight after Teo. Okay, comrades.
Joe Hill!
I think they are. Can you play Joe Hill? Okay, Teo's going to sing Joe Hill. If you haven't heard this, you've heard nothing.
Okay. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you and me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, says he. I never died, says he. Salt Lake Joe, by Joe, I says, him standing by my bed. They framed you on a murder charge, says Joe, but I ain't dead. Says Joe, but I ain't dead. The copper bosses killed you, Joe. They shot you, Joe, says I.
Takes more than guns to kill a man, says Joe, I didn't die.
Takes more than guns to kill a man, says Joe, I didn't die. Says Joe, I didn't die. And standing there as big as life, and smiling with his eyes, he says those they forgot to kill went on to organize, went on to organize. Joe Hill ain't dead, he says to me. Joe Hill ain't never died. We're workers strike and organize. Joe Hill is at their side. Joe Hill is at their side. From Manchester to Liverpool, in every mine and mill, where working folk defend their rights. That's where you'll find Joe Hill. That's where you'll find Joe Hill. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you and me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, says he. I never died, says he. I never died, says he.
Thank you so much, Teo. absolutely breathtaking. Truly. So we'll be going to close the meeting, but we're going to be having music continuing. I don't know how many songs they're going to play, but it's absolutely fantastic for all of these artists to come along and play for us or sing for us today. So there's Stephen Brown and Jed. I'm sorry, I don't know who else. Joe, sorry. Bleeding Hearts. Off you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to prove I'm not a drummer, but I'm going to jump like the other day. I think I've been making notes as we've gone along tonight, and I've got some favourite quotes from the speakers. I think it was Tracy that said, "This is not a drill." That was you, Tracy. I think the other one was "Up the fucking workers." So up the fucking workers! Ken said, "Nothing is too good for the working class." And profit, this is my favourite, is the dumb of the devil. So this is about giving hope to young people, and it's called "Hardly Anything Matters to Me."
The set song is actually an anti-fascist song, but the few times that we played it, and there's been some dickheads in the room of the right-wing persuasion, they haven't quite got it because it's a song about Ireland. And because I sing about how England is my home, they're like, yeah, man, England is my home. But it's actually ironic, it's an anti-fascist song. And there's a little bit of a sing-along in the middle, so if you fancy exercising your lungs and your mouths, you can join in with us. The chorus is really easy, by the way. So let's see it again. 1, 2,
Let's have some intellectual. We should reach the rest of them about the Bible. It's all about solution, the freedom going on.